Good evening. Thank you very much for everyone for coming. Particular deep, abiding, bottomless gratitude to Roshi for inviting me, trusting me, and drawing me home to the Zen world and this beautiful text, this beautiful, powerful text for these times. Gratitude to the Tenzo Kyokan and to each of you for renewing a text that is more than 800 years old. I'd like to begin this evening by expressing gratitude to my editor at Bantam Books, Tony Burbank, also a founding editor for Natalie Goldberg, for Tara Brock, for Jack Cornfield, and for many other authors. She died a few days ago, peacefully, in Portland, Oregon, with her son right at her bedside. Her husband, Tony Colts, was also a brilliant editor. And visiting them at Bantam Books, particularly Tony, Natalie and I agreed, Bantam Books in the dragon's lair of the editors really felt like a monastery. So for any who know the craft of writing, we thank our editors this evening, in particular and explicitly. You know, it's such a joy to read from this text, translated by a strong practitioner and written by a strong, translated by a strong practitioner, and then that translation also by a strong practitioner, and my abiding and helpful editor, Jisho Carey Warner, also involved in the production of this beautiful book. So let's listen to some phrases just to have you be inoculated. Beginning with a tribute from Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, holding up food in his hand. In this food, I clearly see, in this food, I see clearly the presence of the entire universe supporting my existence. The greatest teachers from earliest times were those who settled in the way and carried out work with their own hands. This is the Tenzo Kyokan. And those who have come before us have said, the way-seeking mind of a Tenzo, head of the kitchen, head of the rice pot, the way-seeking mind of a Tenzo is actualized by rolling up your sleeves. Both day and night, all things to come, both day and night, allow all things to come into and reside within your mind. Allow all things to function together as a whole, and keep your eyes open. Do not allow even one grain of rice to be lost. Strengthen your resolve. Devote your life spirit to suppressing the refreshment, to surpassing the refreshment of the ancient ones, and bring even more meticulous care than those who came before you. Doing so is the means whereby we turn things, even while simultaneously being turned by them. It is vital that we clarify and harmonize our lives with our work and not lose sight of either the absolute or the practical. Handle even a single leaf of green in such a way that it manifests the body of the Buddha. This in turn allows the Buddha to manifest through the leaf. This is a power which you cannot grasp with your natural mind. It operates freely, according to the situation, in a most natural way. A simple green has the power to become the practice of the Buddha, nurturing the desire to live out the way. And at the same time, this power functions in our lives to clarify and settle activities. And this power is beneficial to all living beings. I notice how shaken up I always feel by this text. It rocks my life and moves in me and presents and manifests in me like a standing stone, which is the title of tonight's talk. You know, the great Neolithic standing stones of ancient England and the British Isles, 5,000 years before the Common Era, these magnificent 15 to 18 foot monoliths, neoliths, standing in open field. No explanation, just standing in all of their power. Maybe inscribing an ever widening circle in the field and bringing us to stillness and silence. Standing stones are the basis of every morsel of food that we taste and eat and are transformed by and with. So this evening I'm feeling here, feet on this good wooden and stone floor, serene mountain behind me, guardian deity above the threshold coming in, the importance of being alive right now and cooking our lives together, from raw to cooked and back to essence. When my son was a very little boy, he drew a picture of a creature, kind of like a caterpillar with wheels and a large tail that was raised up behind him, and very nice little packets of manure were falling on the ground. And Jesse said, this creature, he said, gets around by working. And I think Zen practice is so alive with work, real work, not a ghost. Work that transforms and meets the world. And Roshi initiated this practice period by reminding us that in India, during this season, the rain season, practitioners moved over the face of the earth, turning away from work that would leave a trace. Because to dig in the ground or to try to create food from the living earth left a trace. And so these home-leaving traditional cloud and water wanderers wandered begging for alms, never digging in the ground, wearing the simple rice field robe, and moving across the landscape without any permanent abode. Not so in China, not so in China. First of all, the earliest monastic tradition, and in China, the earliest monastic rules and regulations so inspired Dogen Zenji to see the force of patch-robed monks, cloud and water wanderers, willing to live and die together and have a code of rules to help that be possible. So rather than China is too cold, too rough, too rugged to ask for alms, and it's just not in the character of the Chinese mind. And so early Zen, and we know from the last
5 years here, we've been studying every winter practice period. We've been studying those great teachers from the Tang Dynasty before and after, who hid in the folds of the southern mountains and were made of the wind of the Yangtze River and the other waters and rivers of that great time. They were formed, strengthened, and deepened by danger, by the Anlushan rebellion, famine, war, more than half of the people in their world dying mass death from the destruction of war, and the suppression of Buddhism as well. These are the original teachers, hidden in the mountains, and they were not discovered. They depended on living a lean existence, and they lived together, which is a very efficient way to be modest, invisible, and magnificent. No begging, not in their character to beg. Instead, figuring out how to take the simplest and most resilient rice, entrust it to the earth, and grow enough food to sustain monastic practice, and then to create a 10-volume text offering guidelines for how to bring together heart and mind in the present moment, cook the rice, serve the rice, and grow a field far beyond form and emptiness. So important always to look at the ethos of real food, real writing, real rules and regulation, real practice, and not as a metaphor, but to see directly how to live our lives, how to cook our lives. Matsu Baichang, Wang Bo, Dongshan, Yanshan, Yunmen, studying together their stories, their public record, their cases in the Gateless Gate, the Book of Serenity, the Blue Cliff Record. I read them as a farmer reads a good agricultural text, I have to say. I delight in 3 pounds of flax or sesame. I delight in the stories of the rice. I delight in the source, the 6 ancestor source of so many of the descendants of the Zen tradition. Meeting his master, hearing in the marketplace, hearing a reading of the Diamond Sutra, and asking, what text is that? Oh, that's the Diamond Sutra. You need to go and be near the monastery of Hongren. He'll tell you. He'll tell you about a text that says, you should see this world, a drop of dew, a bubble in a stream, lightning in a summer cloud, a phantom in a dream. So illiterate Huineng goes to the outskirts of the monastery and begins to pound rice. Pound, 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 pound in the rice, pound, pound. The teacher comes up and says, is the rice ready yet? Or is the rice white yet? White means polished. White rice is polished by pounding, by grinding. Huineng answered, it is white, but not sifted, meaning the chaff is still there in the rice. I won't interpret anymore. It's white, but not sifted. And Hong Ren takes the mortar, boom, boom, boom. And Huineng puts the rice in the sifter, cha-cha-cha, 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 3 times, puts everything down. Story ends, except for their meeting in the night and the rice field road spreading across a hungry world. And that began in monastic practice. Beautifully said, cloud and water wanderers, patch-robed monks and monkesses, cloud and water wanderers, how they're referred to. And also in this tradition, a day without work is a day without eating. If you don't work, you don't eat. And if you don't live lean and low on the chain, you will be fat and lazy and rolling in your own story. Rolling in your own story and believing your own story. And thinking you have a story to tell. So you keep it lean, keep hungry. And also digest the truth of the teaching and see food as medicine. For those of you who know the world of medicine, see food as medicine and do not deny food or medicine to the hungry. And when you find your place, practice occurs. It's such a beautiful statement. I always pledge it here at Upaya from Dogen Zenji. When you find your place, practice occurs. This Dharma center is a mountain. This comes from the tradition of the mountain. I feel it breathless, crawling up the mountainsides from sea level. Early, Roshi offering us this Yokut's prayer. My words are tied in one with the great mountains, the great rocks, and the great trees. Tied in one with my mind and heart. Will you help me with your supernatural powers? You day, you night, you who see me one with this earth. To me, that's the song of Upaya. That's the song of Upaya. And it's also a tradition, this place, for all of us, so many of us, please see it as a place where we're willing to stand together on the edge. Where we're willing, again and again, to find freedom where fear and courage meet. And I like to play with words. So I read Roshi's book, and my mind begins to hum and sing. And I take the encouragement to know altruism, to know empathy, to know respect, integrity, and engagement, and to bind them with the one without rules, that is, unconditional compassion. And I find the word eerie, A-E-R-I-E. Of course, I reverse the order of the word somewhat. Eerie, an eagle's nest, built on a rocky crag, overlooking an open field far beyond form and emptiness. Also, a threshing floor and a native place. But this is how I feel at home at Upaya. This is a threshing floor. You step out, you step into the door, you step up onto a round stone, and all the birds of sorrow and joy are invited in to thresh and eat. Now, 20 elements make up who we are. 4 of them are from the living air, around the nest of the eagle of the Erie. And all of the others are from the living earth. So when we study the Tenzo Kyoken, we're studying the old ways and the old earth. Leonardo da Vinci observed more than 500 years ago that we know more about the heavens above than we do about the living earth. And so he took soil from all the different parts of Italy and beyond and mixed it with kaolin clay, and other good ingredients, and created pastels so he could paint the living earth and it wouldn't be forgotten. That's applied practice. That's the kind of practice we're being called to take up and magnify and follow and believe in. And to forget how to tend the soil, Gandhi reminds us, to forget how to tend the soil is to forget how to tend yourself. You don't have to, there's so many ways to tend the soil. This is not a gardening class, so I won't. I don't think, but it might be a little bit. But every molecule of soil. And of course, you know, holding up a teaspoon of soil, there are more microorganisms in that teaspoonful than there are human beings on this planet, teeming with life. Teeming, and also teamwork of life. And every molecule, every breath of soil is 50% mineral, standing stone. 25% water, 25% air, and a tiny bit of Om. I love to do this because that's organic matter. Om, just a little bit. And thank heavens, because that means that every particle, every whisper, every grain, every breath of soil also includes a kind of fertility that is at its base radical and radically disordered by humus, by decomposition, by disorder. Radical disorder, the key to the function of fertile soil. No two molecules are alike. In this ground that brings forth food and the mystery of food, similarity is rampant and identity non-existent. So we have the pleasure of studying together this old text. We do it in so many different ways. Beloved online community, more than 500 people gathered and studying. To have every evening for me closes listening to friends in the celestial community and their experience of practicing with this text. And we bring it to life in our own bodies and mind. And many years ago, when Tony Burbank said to me, and she said to San Francisco Zen Center, you need to send her, this author, on a pilgrimage. Take Gardening at the Dragon's Gate and go and visit Zen centers. Go all around and share your experience and meet new people. So I had the pleasure of going to Dharma Rain in Portland, Oregon, which is where Tony died, the city where Tony died. I'm thinking tonight, how meaningful. And practicing then with Kyogen Carlson, who every morning would take the food offering from the altar, from the Zendo. And Dharma Rain was a very simple, modest Zen center. And Kyogen and Gyokujin, a married couple, together created a very strong Dharma center in Portland. And every morning he took the offering out and then went to a big oak tree and reached. He was long and tall and thin and lean and incredible. And took the offering and put it in the crotch of the tree and bowed and went back into the house, never looked around. But some of us looked out the window to the fat and ever fattening squirrel who depended on that offering. And I remember when I stayed at Dharma Rain on the weekend, on a resting day, Kyogen came and he knocked at the guest house and he said, pancakes for everyone, pancakes, pancakes. And we had the most modest and delicious stack of pancakes. And Kyogen, the wonderful new student, Omyo Burke, who was practicing with him during those times, just beginning. And she's done some beautiful research and teaching on the Tenzo Kyoken. So I I gratefully accepted some of her insights into the text and of course amplified them and adjusted them to our experience. So I'd like to offer three guidelines that came up for me. Three gritty, graceful teachings from the text. First of all, be energetic, conscientious, meticulous, and sincere in your work. It's a primary teaching from the Tenzo Kyoken. And know your place in every way. And I think of Jorge yesterday, or 2 days ago, when we rematriated beautiful, rich harvest of corn to knowledge holder and artist Roxanne Swensel from Santa Clara Pueblo. Jorge preparing the ground out in the garden. The garden was still covered with snow, but he went in, and in the center of the garden, there are 3 standing stones, large stones from Upaya. And I want to say, in honor of Roshi, you don't have to stand to be powerful. Sometimes sitting like those old stones is the very way to go. And in between, in their nave, in the nest that they create, is an old metate, a mother. Roxanne tells a story of discovering some of these stone basins and taking them to a group of young women who'd never handled or ground corn on metate, or very little, in the Pueblo. And she said they lined them up. People brought lots of metates y manos into the Santa Clara Pueblo, and the women kneeled down and laid corn on the grinding stones, began to work, began to sift and grind and move over the stone. And I don't really know what Jorge, the root of his name means gardener or worker of the earth. I don't know what Jorge did in there, but it was very alive this morning when I walked by, and I happened to see a few bright ruby grains of the Hopi Supai corn on the old mano, on the old metate in the center of the garden. And that's what I'm talking about. You know your place, you're meticulous, you offer prayers, and you're ready to be ground up at any moment on the metate. Put your awakened mind to work, your way-seeking mind, put it to work. Find, consolidate, offer the 6 flavors. Be, this is me, not the, the Tenso Kyokan doesn't preach, but just practices. So, but find and taste and know the truth of the 6 flavors. Be bitter, be sweet, be sour, be salty, be mild, be hot and spicy. Do that. Bring those flavors into the world, and find the 3 qualities that are so important. Meticulously, conscientiously, sincerely. Find how to be light and flexible at the same time. Clean and neat. No trace. Just neat, clean, clear, gone in a heartbeat. And how to be conscientious and thorough. And step up to the grinding stone. Discern what has to be done. Read the field. Keep your senses alive. Do you know, in Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh's home country, when rice is cooked in a pot over a live fire, like I saw it in Japan, being done in Japan, when rice is cooked in that way, the old way, and the lid is taken off and the steam rises up, a strong practitioner knows the exact valley where that rice was grown, calls it up, knows it through the senses. And still, with all that capacity, still, it's the same kind of person who, like Thich Nhat Hanh and in his original community in France, in Paris, lived off the rice that was sold in old pet shops. They didn't have more money. They didn't have enough money to buy any other rice than the rice that was offered to feed birds. That shattered, broken rice fueled the intensity and the beginning of the order of inner being and the 14 precepts of the order of inner being. And it fueled the primary teacher of this Dharma center. And it fueled me, and it continues to feed and fuel a very hungry world. And the second point is, in whatever way you can, as Wendell Berry says, be joyful although you know the facts. No. In the dark of the moon, in long winter, in flying snow, in a time of war and pestilence, I walk the rocky hillsides, sowing clover, the poet says. This is Wendell. I walk the rocky hillsides, sowing clover. But be joyful, although we know the facts. So, second point, find joy in service and in practicing with these guidelines. And they're available to anyone and everyone. Find joy in the harvest and in serving others. And what a vivid teaching we had about joy and the joy of others with Roxanne and Alonzo and Cato in spirit, those who were with us, reminding us of planting life last May, and then harvesting, a beautiful harvest, which the residents did, bringing it to the table on the cob, and then just 2 days ago, rematriating or returning that harvest to the breeder, to the artist, to the knowledge holder, to Roxanne Swensel. There was such joy in the community to be able to do that and to have the corn celebrate with us. A single kernel opening up a whole field. And then receiving from Roxanne these vessels, this small one, to hold the seeds of antiquity and share them. And Roshi receiving a larger one to hold the corn, to hold the seed of the corn joyfully, lightly, and with absolute gravity of purpose, and return it to the ground so it can sing again in its modern and ancient song and feed a hungry world. And in this work, there is no anonymous food. Every food, every morsel is food with a farmer's face on it. The founding, of course, it came from Japan. Teikai is the movement. Translates as eat food with a farmer's face on it. Now, this is community agriculture, CSA, community supported agriculture. Support food that's grown with a farmer's face on it. So you eat the face of the farmer and face the world and face the call to serve and be. Actually, as being in India a number of years ago in pilgrimage with Roshi Bernie, with Bernie Glassman, Bernie said to the Jesuit priest who was with us, "Hey, come on, give us a grace for India." What does a Jesuit say? What's the grace that the Jesuit says? Come on, come on. And Father Michael said, eat and be eaten. Eat and be eaten. That's joyful and accurate. And last of all, in whatever way you can, become one with your activity. Hard work is not a burden. I really dedicate this statement, this last point, to my beloved husband. 50 years this year, we'll be married, 50 years. We were married in the Zendo at Green Gulch 50 years ago. And our wedding celebration unfolded under an old oak tree planted in the center of the field. We celebrated, when we also celebrated the power and glory of real work. And we're linked for life through the gift and honor of the honorable harvest that comes from good work. So don't be afraid of good work. Become one with your activity. Hard work is never a burden. Tenzo Kyokun says, the indescribable self-sufficiency of the Buddha way is as obvious in the Tenzo's kitchen as it is in the Zendo. And when the sun rises in the early morning, I learned from Katagiri Roshi and practicing in an empty field long ago outside of Minneapolis. When the sun shines on a monastic compound, the first sunlight comes in, you light the fire of the stove in the kitchen, the hearth, the oven, the orno? Oh, thank you. And that fire is facing the candle in the Zendo. They're lit at the same time. Cook your life. Cook your life. Do not be too attached even to silence and stillness. Practice is everything we undertake, aspiring that we and all beings alike will be free of suffering. And practice includes work. From the Tenzo Kyokan. Once again, practice is everything we undertake, aspiring that we and all beings alike will be free of suffering. And practice includes work. Mindful does not mean slow. Real Zen masters wash their own bowls. I'll never forget seeing that little sign here at Upaya when I first came here. There was a little tag above the sink. Am I right, Roshi? Yeah. Real Zen masters wash their own dishes. And this is Edward Brown, who was Shuso. Ed was Shuso at Tassajara when Peter and I first arrived, right after Suzuki Roshi died, 1973, to Tassajara. And we sat Tongario with Ed, and he told stories of Suzuki Roshi, asking Suzuki Roshi, how can I really be in the kitchen? What should I know? What should I do? How should I practice? And it was Ed who said, no anonymous food. What should I do? How should I practice? And Suzuki Roshi said, when you cut the carrots, just cut the carrots. When you roll the rice, just roll the rice. And I remember Ed talking about the sincerity of the carrots, just lying there like an ancient Buddha on the cutting board, ready to meet our own metabolism, metabolic fire. So I'd like to close just by holding up this handful of rice. Thank you, Roshi, for knowing that it would be what a gift it would be for me to attend Natalie and help her in Japan and to be present for Kaz's 90th birthday. And thank you for supporting me to go to Japan. Otherwise, I never would have been able to. We studied haiku and Japanese gardens, so duh, I should go. What do you think? Who's the one who should? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was incredible, incredible visit, incredible. Before the practitioners came, Natalie and I were there with Mitsue and Bernd. Kaz was in Japan, but with his family. Bernd and Mitsue took us to a small gallery outside of Kyoto. And the gallery was so beautiful. They were displaying handmade indigo. Whoop. Chalabaza. This is some of the indigo. This is a scarf. Beautiful indigo field. Whoop. I'm shedding. So the indigo was there, and Bernd said, they've just come from the West. Can you make a simple meal? Do you know the woman who was in the gallery recognized me? She said, don't you know Mayumi? I said, and how? She said, this is so good to cook for you. And her husband was also a primary teacher at Antaiji Monastery, which is the source temple for Uchiyama Roshi and the translation that we're studying of the Tenzo Kyokan. And her husband wanted a little stricter life than at current Antaiji. So he and his wife moved away into a very rough part of the mountains and valleys of inland Japan, and they planted rice. And it was the rice, that very rice, that she was cooking that day in the old way, on a fire, in the tiny little building that was the gallery, making art, making these beautiful indigo offerings, and also cooking us a meal, a simple meal on that fire. And I will never forget the scent of that rice. At the end of the meal, she said, "This is for you." And she gave me a bag of rice, and I've kept it until I knew it could be appreciated and enjoyed. And Kaz's birthday is October 4th or early October. Thank you, Roshi, October 4th, and mine is the 8th. So we celebrated our birthdays together. He turned 90. We celebrated him massively. And my birthday was technically on October 7th. Some of you know that's the date of great calamity in Palestine, Israel, Gaza. We were in Japan. We offered prayer and ate together, really prayed for the world. And people came up to us all around and also offered prayer. Anyway, this is a handful of rice, but we are going to have a demonstration of real cooking, not a ghost, in the kitchen. And I hope that, Tisha, I hope that where are you? Oh, I hope that you can cook a little iron pot of this rice, or else. Anyway, I hope you can cook a little bit of this so that we can just smell that lively steam that comes from fire and rice and water, meeting and marrying and molding and miraculously changing. So, and each grain will be celebrated the way we should treat all food. Each one of the kernels of the corn that evolved in Roxanne's mind, each kernel on those ears create a whole nother ear. So that rice is, as later in our journey, this is rice from this rice. Rice is my identity. Said a cook and chef, rice is my identity. So let's find our true identity. And let's be a standing stone. You know, there is an old hymn, which I'd love, Kodo and I cooked this up in our little kitchen, which is also known as his office, which has an extraordinary screensaver of the great rocks of Yosemite Mountain, the Yosemite Half Dome Mountain. On Kodo's screen, the mountains rotate. I just stand there in front of the screen, watching Half Dome do that old dance of a standing stone, looking in the 10 directions and calling all of us, settle yourself on yourself. Find the great grit and grace of your life to mitigate, to adapt, and to be resilient, morally resilient, like Cinda writes about. Morally resilient and strong as a standing stone. So this is an old hymn. You're going to listen to it. And you're going to hear Melanie DeMore sing it. For those of you who know, she is music, live music. There are 3 parts. It's just the most simple song on earth. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. And you take it in. Receive it as an offering so that you can give back and consider, what is a standing stone for me? What does it mean to be a standing stone? And so Kodo, are we ready?
I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you.
Why not stand up?
I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you.
It's a hymn.
I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone. I will stand by you. I will be your standing stone.